Good afternoon, my friends. It's 2 o'clock, and it's Thursday. I hope your morning's been productive. I've been scurrying around. My children used to ask me, Dad, what do you do during the week? I'm Pastor Lou Kilgore. I'm here. Been sitting here in these two chairs now for coming up on a year every weekday at 2 o'clock with unplanned exceptions, but pretty much here. I'm pastor here at the High Mountain Presbyterian Church, is where our physical location is for this online virtual broadcast, which we call Pastor's Chat. It's an invitation for you. Seems like there's a core of people, you are regular who watch live, then there's a core of people who are regular who tune in the evening after supper, and some before bedtime, some early in the morning. And then there's also regularly those of you who've just, stopped by. Happy to have all of you here. It's a bright, sunny day, but winter is making its claim this year, reminding us that we are not the master of winter, it is the master of us. So, deep snow in the area around us today. So I've been using the content of the Pastor's Chat to follow along in the Christian year, in the liturgy, and to talk about notions and thoughts and directions that might fit into, the church sat together and thought, how do we teach the essence of Christianity? And the idea was it should have an organization to it. So we should follow the life of Christ. We should have a curriculum, if you will. It starts with the birth of Jesus and then moves on through his life and moves into the period of his growth as a person, and then right away into what becomes the week of Passion, because so much of what's accounted in the Bible for Jesus' life really gets underway when he's about 30 years old, and it's only 3 years later that he's hanging on a cross, crucified, and then resurrected. And so anyway, the calendar year is based on, if you would, a biography of Jesus. The last third of it is a biography, yes, but listening to the way Jesus would want us to live. So how are we to live with each other? And so right now we're still just in the aftermath, if you will, just in the time after the birth of Jesus. The Epiphany season, the season of what is it that we could come to see? What might we see in the light of the star that shone the way to the Magi from the far east? And if you're reading along, if you're following along in our gospel readings in our main gathering on Sundays, we are beginning to see in this season of Epiphany who Jesus was. You tell a lot about a person by how they behave and what they did. And so the Gospel of Mark is our focus point for this year. And in the Gospel of Mark, there's nothing about Jesus' birth, but there's a lot about what he did, how he started. He called his disciples, and there it is. He called his disciples and began ministering in the synagogue and teaching. What was he teaching? Teaching by what he said and teaching by where he went. That he engaged with people who had hugely disruptive illnesses in their lives, demon possession, people who had fevers, people who were sick both in body and soul. Jesus went to them. So in the spirit of that epiphany, I've been guiding us and trying to guide us into the idea of, well, what does the light of Christ show us? What can we see in the light of Christ that we wouldn't have seen? And this isn't definitive list. This is an ongoing exploration. And sometimes we have to have it come to us again because we make these observations and then we live and forget them, or we ignore them and then they come back around to us. This is the season of aha, discovery. Sometimes it's rediscovery. So if you've been here daily, you know that I announced on Monday this would be, in my thing, the epiphany of the self. What are you learning about yourself? What are you open to learn about yourself? And I've acknowledged that it's not just difficult, even if you're well-intended. Good intentions alone won't take you very far. Humility will take you better on this journey. Humility, not humiliation, but humility, real humility, which is in honesty and openness. Not an overinflated sense of self and not a deflated sense of value. A humility which is even is perhaps the best road to walk upon and often difficult to achieve. And you can sometimes think you're there, you know, like the person said, my greatest asset is I'm the most humble person in the world. It's tricky, this thing of humility. So I was thinking about, so what today, after the things I've talked about, the gathering an inventory from those that you trust and how you cannot really do an inventory of yourself or knowledge of yourself alone because there's too many blind sides. You have eyes and ears on one side of your head. It leaves 2/3 of your gathering awareness of yourself in your blind side. You need trusted friends and people, a community, to help you to see the rest of that and help you to know it. But they have to be trusted, and people aren't always to be trusted. And then today, for some reason, I'm pretty sure I was going to go check it, but I've quoted it this way many times. I think it was St. Augustine who said, our souls are restless until we find our rest in thee, meaning God. Our souls are restless until we find our rest in thee. And so, for my purposes, that quote means this for this setting. Our knowledge of ourselves is incomplete, broken, wandering, falling in the wind, until we find ourselves in God. And this is a little bit of what I was talking about yesterday, that it's worth it to ask, how does God see me? And then do a little, broadening of that quest and say, where did I get the idea of how God sees me? I'm not just starting with, because I talked yesterday about the fact that for many people, God is like that famous painting of sinners in the hands of an angry God. There's so many people out there involved in the faith and religious business who, quite frankly, what shows more than anything else is their own projection of their own anger about the way life is, anger about the way other people are, anger, and then he starts to talk about God, and no surprise, God's angry. If you're, date myself, if you're looking at slides, remember a slide projector? If you're looking at slides and you take a piece of red gel and put it in front of the slide projector, everything it projects is red. Everything. Even if the pictures were of waterfalls and beautiful forests or flowers, a variety of colors, you put this gel in front of it and everything is red. And that's provided by us. That's what I mean by projection. You project onto God an image that comes out of the bubbling and the boiling of your own soul. And I'm not judging, I'm reporting that an awful lot of people who step up to talk and represent God, what God might be saying or what God might be feeling or what God might think, I don't think have done a lot of work in introspection to ask how much of what I think I see God saying or thinking is being generated out of broken parts of myself. A story from the New York Times from many years ago pops into my head, and I think I can get it right because I think it makes the point. A young boy, 12 years old, went into a pet shop and had said he'd gotten permission from his mother. He had the money, and he wanted to buy one of the puppies that was in the litter that was in the window. And the shop owner said, okay, come on over and you can play with the puppies a little bit. And he brought the puppies to the countertop, and the little boy was looking at them, and there were 7 puppies in the litter, and one of them clearly wasn't just the runt of the litter. He had some serious physical problems. And the boy looked at the puppies and chose that one. And the shop owner said, I can't sell you that puppy. And the boy said, why not? That's the one I want. That's the one. That's the puppy for me. And the shop owner tried to talk to him and to say, look, I know maybe you like him because he's not running away from you or whatever, but this puppy, your parents would not be happy if you came home with this puppy. And the boy insisted. He said, sir, I have the money right here. My parents gave me the money to pick out the puppy, and that's the puppy I want. I want that one. And the shop owner said, I won't sell you that puppy unless you come back, go home and come back with a note that tells me that this puppy that's kind of broken, it has a wounded leg and everything, that this puppy is all right for you to bring home, or bring one of them back with you. And the boy his countenance was down. He turned around to leave the pet shop. And as he's walking out, the owner of the pet shop notices that the boy walks with a limp. And he has a brace on his left leg. And his left foot is turned in. And all of the sudden, the connection and the reason for the desire for that puppy, for that boy, made sense. Now, in some ways, that story comes up in terms of what projection is. This boy, from his life, has been struggling to project out into the world that a less than perfect puppy is still perfect. And so through his eyes, through his world, through his projection, a puppy that was lame was perfectly fine. But the shop owner, through his own projection of what's good and healthy and all the rest of it, determined that that would not be a good puppy to adopt. Now, I know it's not exactly a clear connection, but I like the story, first of all. I like it because it speaks about the kind of earth-shattering vision that God has of us and how God looks at us. God does not look at us the way human beings look at us. In the same way that that child did not look at that puppy in the same way that shop owners and all the other shoppers looked at that puppy. The powerful bond of identification between that child and that puppy is representative of the kind of bond that God has with us. You are mine, the scriptures say. You belong to me. Not you are perfect or you're just right for all the things that you can do. There's room for that in all the relationships. But the foundation of the relationship it's a bond of love. And Jesus, he wasn't trying to say God is a father or God is. Jesus said one of the metaphors, one of the actions, one of the experiences that you have in life, if you've ever had it, is to either be a mother who receives a newborn child and to discover the movement of earth and heaven and sky and sea, to reshape the inside of that mother human being and present her with her child. A father, too, seeing their child, their daughter, their son, caring for their son, the love that is awakened inside of them. And optimistically, Jesus says a mother will never forsake her nursing child. Well, mothers do. But what a powerful attraction, a magnetic attachment there is between the newborn child and the mother. What a magnetic attraction there was between that child with the turned leg and the brace on his leg and this puppy that obviously wasn't going through life with all the faculties that he needed either. What a bond is formed. And so when you think about, or you try to think about what God thinks about you, you cannot underestimate the power of God's bondedness to you and to me. It's just overwhelming. It colors everything else. And I sometimes am sad because I think when people try to talk about God to other people, it's so hard to describe. It's so difficult to get to be sufficient in describing how God looks at us. Can God get disappointed with me? Sure. God can even get angry with me. Disappointed, angry. I can also get disappointed in my understanding of God. But all of that back and forth, get angry, whatever, those are the little gives and takes. Even if it's huge, little tiny gives and takes, failures, forgivenesses, failure to forgive, failure to ask for, all of that, those are little tiny grits in the substance of the relationship between God and a human being. Nothing can describe the relationship that God has to you and to me, who you are in God's eyes. If God was to give a talk about God's understanding of you, and the talk was to last for 6 hours, the first 5 hours and 55 minutes would be how God celebrates your creativity, your uniqueness, who you are, who you're coming to be, how you survive, your strengths, your vision, all the things. And then the last 5 minutes would be God's disappointments or sense of failure. Because God's eyes are biased toward us. Like the prodigal child, the father had been shoved away, gone off to another land, took the inheritance, the child did, and spent it all. And the father sees the child after a year, way off in the distance, making his way home, bruised, broken, demoralized. And the father looks to the horizon and says, "Oh my goodness, there's my child." Drops everything and runs. Cares not about the rest of it, but that the child who was lost is home. So, in the inventory of the discovery of self, We find our true selves when we find ourselves in God's eyes. In God's eyes. That's my thought for today. I hope it's helpful. I hope it will give you some steam on the railroad of life and be part of how you might answer the question, how am I today? God bless you, my friends. It's been good to chat with you today, and come on back tomorrow. The chair will still be here for you. I'll be glad to see you. God bless you. Be well.